Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Chop Sports Daily, coming to you live from the Flipping Made Easy studio in Matawan, New Jersey. Your host, of course, Sturch and Gooch, and of course, Dina behind the glass. There's no glass, but she's behind something. So here we are. It is Tuesday, January the 25th, 2022. We want to welcome everybody to the show. There's a lot of stuff going on. Last night, the interwebs were a buzzing, and when I say interwebs, I mean the Chop Sports Facebook group. We'll get into that in a little bit. First and foremost, I'd be remiss to say support Chop Sports, meaning go over to patreon.com/Chop Sports. Support your boys. There's 3 different tiers. General support, $3 a month, helps us pay the bills, keeps the lights on in this place, and helps us from kicking out Dina and Joe and finding new people to pay more money to live here. So anyway, patreon.com/Chop Sports to go support us. You can also go on to chopsports.shop. It's got a lot of cool shit going on as far as beanies and track jackets and hoodies and t-shirts and all sorts of merchandise. Chopsports.shop. So thank you so much for anybody who's spent a dime in the last year on us. Thank you so much. Also, tonight, I will be recording the very first episode of the Jersey Boys podcast. So if you're a Cowboys fan and you want some uncut, raw, unfiltered Cowboys takes, we're dropping tomorrow on the Chop Sports Podcast Network. We're going to hook Anthony up also, or our intern who will be joining us now on Wednesdays and Thursdays. He'll be in here. I'll hook him up with the network, and he's going to be promoting all the shows a little bit more over on LinkedIn and social medias and all that good stuff. So that drops. And, of course, yesterday, Gooch.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when's that dropping?
I think I'm going to drop it on Thursday. Not much edits to do, but yesterday, me, Tommy D, and Gooch sat down to do the first ever Chop Heads Combat Sports podcast. We talked a little UFC 270. We talked a little pro wrestling, in which, in fact, Gooch completely checked out, didn't know what was going on. So we'll definitely.
I made one comment about nobody cares about this, and you guys both shut me down as if people actually care about
decided to say that nobody cares about the independent scene of professional wrestling, like the GCWs of the world and the Wrestle Pros of the world. So people, when I say people, it's just mean Tommy D, like, hey, whoa, pump the brakes. Let's not get crazy here.
Unless we're talking about Hulkamania. And things like
running
that,
wild.
I have no input.
I understand. We will be talking about the NFC and AFC title games tomorrow and Thursday. We'll dive into the AFC tomorrow, NFC on Thursday. I know I'm still giving Gooch a little bit of time to.
Yeah, I'm still sitting Shiva.
That's a Jewish thing when people die. Yes, so the free the D. Yes, Tommy. Right after recording, he decided to make a stupid comment on one of the threads, basically saying you're going to stab somebody, and that will get you flagged. And we didn't do it. Believe it or not.
No, I did it. He made some dumbass comment yesterday. What was it?
He always makes dumb.
It was about, I think it was about the Packers, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. You read it this morning. I wish I remembered, because then my joke.
Lombardi was overrated.
Oh yeah, that Vince Lombardi was overrated. That's probably what got you the 30-day ban. Come on, bro. We're not about renaming Super Bowl titles.
It's whatchamacallit. So Tommy D suspended from Facebook for 30 days. I'm so sorry to hear that, and I'm sorry for your
and Dave, I noticed that Ashley loves that I stick by my points, and she also loves my polo today. And you didn't make the bubbles bigger.
God, whatever. I mean, first of all, I'm just. Can somebody out there just start complimenting me every day? Just somebody, Scoop, anybody out there. I need it today. Thank you, Dina. See, like, at least in 4D, Dina's right here saying I look good today. I wear the same thing every day, folks. I bought literally home, away, alternate hoodies. I'm supporting Chop Sports, and I'm not knocking Chris. He always wears his Chop stuff, and he takes his sips from his morning coffee from Chop Sports mug. He is a company guy after all, but. I mean, like, for the love of God, new season, new man. All right, well, that's what AJ's coming in saying, that you've been reborn. And I think Chop Sports will benefit from the loss of the Cowboys and the Packers, because then we can get focused and we're not so much distracted. Would we love our teams to be playing this weekend? Of course. But, it is.
My father said that to me. He's like, I'm glad the season's over. I was like, are you fucking nuts, bro?
I get that a lot, too. I get like, that means, like, things will get done around the house.
I would have gladly waited 3 more weeks. The season was going to end regardless. We were going to be there at some point or another, but to have this sick feeling it's basically like you're on a roller coaster, and then like right now I'm not really feeling the Packers loss, but then all of a sudden I'll just be on Instagram and I'll come across a meme that'll make me completely sick. And I don't get the control when I feel down in the dumps, Dave, because I constantly scroll and it gets dumped onto my chest.
My brother coming in, by the way. I asked and I shall receive. My brother said I'm the fucking unless he's talking to you. But I'm pretty sure he's talking to me. So thanks, Dan. I appreciate you, buddy. But in any event, there's a lot of stuff to get into. We'll start with something that me and you talked about in pre. We've grazed over it, but there is a little movement on the MLB lockout situation right now. The best thing I could say about this is the fact that they're meeting for a second straight day
that's
today.
Definitely the most significant thing. Look, there's been 43 days since their last meeting, and they've only met once. This is only their second meeting since the lockout began, so there was really no movement whatsoever. They're very far apart still, and we're really not going to know anything until after today's meeting because even though it is a second straight day, yesterday the Players Union made their proposal to the league. I think what they did was they altered the service time thing to 5 years, which is a lot less drastic than what the players initially wanted. So it is trying to settle on common ground. The players did buckle a little bit on that. They're also talking about the owners now make their proposal today. So until we see what the owners propose, which I would imagine that most of the core things that the owners want, they're not going to budge on. And the media narrative gets controlled by the owners and the league.
Do you ever think about the fact that, like, you know, when teams have or leagues have lockouts like this, right? Nobody makes any money, right? Like, why wouldn't the owners and the players just sit down? Yesterday, I heard, from what I've read and heard, they sat down for 2 hours yesterday. Why don't you sit down for 10 hours yesterday and try to get things done? Because if you don't, we're going to miss games, and they already alluded that they're okay with it.
I think that when it comes to, like, the way this is going down, there's people in place that are there to mitigate this meeting. It's not just done by both sides sitting down in a room. Like, this is a very, very big deal. And going in there and talking for days on end might actually be counterproductive because the more you sit and talk, the more points, the more frustration comes out. I think it's a good thing that they did this. They met for 2 hours. The players got to lay out what they wanted, right? And now they'll meet again today. And today, I think, is the important one because we're going to see just exactly how far apart they are. Because when they met 43 days ago, they were very far apart. Now the players moved forward a little bit. Now it's up to the owners in the league to move forward a little bit and kind of set up another meeting where it's like, okay, we gave as much as we're going to give here. You gave as much as you're going to give there. You know, now let's compromise from here. And I don't think that they need to be sitting in all day, every day to get something done.
I just think that it's February in a week.
It doesn't mean that
it
doesn't mean that there's no talks happening. Now, the other thing of note in this is that the league and the owners came out and said that they're okay with missing games.
That's alarming.
I think that's very telling in terms of where we're at, right? Because there's a lot of money at stake, and I don't think anybody typically would be talking like they're willing to miss games, because if the owners say that, then it's very unlike their previous statements in years past where, you know, they typically, like I said, control the media narrative and the court of public opinion. Once I hear the owners are willing to miss games, I'm like, well, you know, the fans are only there to watch the game. They're losing money. It's like you're losing money, but them saying, look, we're willing to lose money on this and we're willing to let you have no baseball on this. To me, it goes against what they've typically done, because I think this sways the court of public opinion in favor of the players, even though I think that the people in the know in this situation already are on the players' side.
Right.
But typically what you get is that get off my lawn guy, where it's like you're getting paid a contract. You should
talk
just go
plenty
play.
About those guys today.
And, you know, the players, baseball is set up wrong. They lost a potential star in Kyler Murray because of the way their pay structure is set up. I know that Kyler Murray, you know, football is the more dangerous sport. There's more risk. There's more inherent risk in that sport. But the fact that Kyler Murray wouldn't have actually gotten paid real money, like to rival his football deal, until 8 years down the line, that's a real issue for Major League Baseball. And in some cases, when you have the international guys, it makes sense because these guys they're coming from nothing. But when you have other guys that are maybe at the top of a draft class where they have other opportunities, I know Kyler's a rare case, but you get the point. It's just it's not a good thing. The players are definitely getting shit on for years and years, and the manipulation of the rules is what makes it even worse. Because if you're not in contention and you're a bad team and you have a really good player, you could bring him up just to showcase him a little bit and then send him right back down, and it's pretty much obvious what you're doing. It's no secrets made. The players have known it forever, and you just get put in this situation where you're stuck in the system for a while you could be accumulating major league stats, you could be accumulating major league service time, and you're not. And there's a small window for a prime in Major League Baseball. Maybe bigger for some guys, but you get what I'm saying. Like there's only a small window for you to make some earnings. I think that there's a potential that we don't see baseball until mid-May.
Oh my God. Are you really?
But if that's just like worst case scenario. We're going to get baseball, but I would say it's almost a guarantee at this point that we're going to miss at least a little bit of time. At least a little bit, maybe 2 weeks.
I'm all for missing some spring training because I feel like that's the most pointless preseason, almost as pointless as NFL preseason. Spring training, guys, like, yeah, you know how to play the game of baseball. Go to the cages, get yourself loose, and play baseball. You know what I mean? I don't know if you need 30 spring training games against the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League and all this other shit. I don't think you need any of that. So if we miss that, I'm all right. But on opening day, I want the Yankees to play baseball. You know what I mean? And I know Mets fans out there, Red Sox fans out there, if you exist, which they should.
I understand what you're saying about not caring about spring training, but in baseball, spring training isn't like it is for football, where I think it really is meaningless. Baseball isn't making much revenue off of their spring training games. Baseball spring training is literally to extend pitchers. It's to get guys ready for the season. You can't just go play on opening day.
We got a comment coming in from Matt Ibi Ibanez. He's the host of the Till Mets Do Us Part podcast. Threatening no games. It's to make the players fold, like players always do, but because they don't want to lose their paychecks. It's sad, but the owners in the end will get what they want because they'll want them out.
Yes,
that's bottom line.
I'm going to bring up Vinny's comment because it lends to the point I was just talking about.
Again, spring training for pitchers. Yes,
I brought that comment up when you said
there's I know, but sometimes we're not looking right at the screen. Yeah. But like basically what we're saying is like, you know, for pitchers, I guess the main thing is when you hear the phrase pitchers and catchers, you get excited, right? Because they're reporting.
They would be like 18 days. Really, maybe it would be like 2 or 3 weeks out now. I mean, 3 weeks out from pitchers and catchers.
How many times? Yeah. How many times does Super Bowl end? And all of a sudden you're like, well, there's only 20 days until pitchers and catchers, right? And now you're going to sit there and be like,
you know how I know? Because anytime I see my Facebook memories, I'll see a post that'll say 18 days till pitchers and catchers. It's typically on a Monday after a playoff loss.
I got a great Facebook memory.
So that's what's going on with me right now.
Facebook memory.
I'm in peril.
I went to it was 2014. So that's 8 years ago today. Myself, the original Wolfpack. Shout out to the Wolfpack. Me, Brett, Shakika, Evan, and Richie went to the Rocky Stairs in Philadelphia because the Royal Rumble was in Philly. And we had a challenge for Evan to run the Rocky Stairs in a certain amount of time. And apparently he did. He did it under 30 seconds, run the whole thing for under 30 seconds. But there is some controversy. We're calling it Stepgate. We don't know if Evan got to the top step before he sat down. So we don't know if 2 feet, like does one hand equal 2 feet? Like it's almost like what's a catch at this point? Did Evan make it all the way up the stairs?
Well,
the world may never know, but it happened 8 years ago.
If you're in like that Ninja Warrior or something, all you have to do is hit the button. So if you're 2 steps down and you could push that button, then you made it.
It's home. Like the aggro crag from Guts. Remember that show?
Maybe I was trying to think of Guts.
Guts was great. Global Guts with Mo.
But yeah, I think that even if baseball got it done in the next 3 weeks is the only, how about this? If baseball could get it done in 3 weeks time, that's the only way that we don't see any games lost.
Because there's not really an acclimation. You don't need acclimation. You just grab your bag and go.
3 weeks.
You know?
And they do need a little bit of acclimation, but I would imagine
it's not being in the summer.
I would imagine that the people in the know will be able to tell the players and the teams, like, let's not act like there's no communication. I understand that there's not supposed to be, but who's stopping a baseball manager from texting his players? It's really not between the managers and the players.
I agree.
It's between the owners and the league and the players association. So typically you're not supposed to have practices and things like that, which I know that they're not going to do, but you would have to imagine at least players are trying to get in shape for baseball season and are not just counting on.
I'm not saying they're all Prince Fielder,
but they will need to get together as a team, and they're going to need the pitchers to pitch, extend their arms and things like that. Otherwise, you're just going to see a ton more injuries.
I wholeheartedly agree. They'll get it done. Kyle Kerms, welcome. Good morning. Glad you're awake. Says the Detroit Tigers to win the AL Central plus 700. Give me my money right now. And Toast getting a little upset because maybe that's a Toast lean that he doesn't want to give out right now, but Who knows? We'll see. Tigers are his team. Don't you dare.
Okay, this could go on
they're
for
arguing
a
back and forth about the Detroit Tigers, which, by the way, is Alan Austin's favorite team, former host of this podcast network with his top tens and what was it called? Chart Choppers. Sorry. He was the host there. He's a big Tigers guy, which, again, didn't know they exist. But other things real quick before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of this episode. Antonio Brown breaks some silence, and I know the last time anybody said or saw of Antonio Brown, he was tweeting out that the Bucs were eliminated and celebrating that and yada, 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 and I think he's a douche for it. But, and I don't want to get too far into this, he did go on record and say that he wants to play with Lamar Jackson. So here's my take real quick. You don't deserve to go anywhere right now, bro. Go get your health straightened out. Go get your mentals straightened out, because right now, no team should ever take a chance on you if you're going to pull what you just pulled with Tampa Bay. That's where I rest my case with that. There's nothing for me to debate about that. He's not all there right now. He needs the help. Go get the help, then play football. Help first.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Antonio Brown trying to call his shot right now. He would be lucky to get on any team. Maybe I could see the Ravens making that move potentially. The only reason I say that
cousin on
is because Hollywood Brown is cousins with Antonio Brown. So maybe there's some familiarity there, and there's at least maybe a budding relationship with the coaching. I have no idea, but I couldn't imagine a front office that's trying to vie for a playoff spot. Maybe midseason acquisition, but I'm not bringing Antonio Brown into like preseason
training camp.
Yeah,
it's
I'm not
just a
doing
mess.
that. If there's an injury and we're desperate, maybe you kick the tires, but I can't see it happen. He's got a lot to prove to me.
Right. Other drama going down in the NFL world of the Twitterverse, at least. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you'll find this interesting. Dak's brother, Tad Prescott, and Des Bryant have lit up Twitter as far as their controversy is concerned. There was, to me, I felt like it was a little what Des Bryant was doing. Des Bryant, everybody knows, is very similar to Antonio Brown. Outlandish. Likes to, almost hear himself talk, like he's a little dramatic. Des Bryant's always been that way. Now, Des Bryant has definitely grown as a person over time. He's definitely started his own business ventures. Like, Des Bryant knows what he's doing now business-wise. But at the end of the day, he's still a Cowboys guy, right? So, like, when the Cowboys fail, like they did 2 weeks ago, he gets vocal. And he said that Dak Prescott would benefit a lot from taking advice from a guy like Tony Romo on how to read defenses and so on, right, and so forth. Tad Prescott takes offense to this. He goes off on Dez, saying, well, that's funny coming from you guys. You also never won anything. And he's talking about Tony Romo and Des Bryant. And I'm just like, I mean, Cowboys Twitter is a very, very dark place. And I do thank Cowboys Twitter for my new following on Twitter, which keeps growing by the day because of my takes on the Cowboys. But at the same time, man, knock this shit off. Like, knock this off. Like, there's no reason for them to open their mouths at all. I know you don't have really a leg to stand on.
I think it's completely a non-story to me. It's a non-player talking to another it's two fans as far as I'm concerned.
Right. But yesterday,
and Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a family, so
Jesus Christ.
I can't talk about these things.
Anyway, yesterday, I want to thank, I don't even know if he's here today yet, but I want to thank Scoop, because Scoop put a post in the Chop Sports Facebook group. So if you're not a member, become a member. And post sports stuff, because if you don't post sports stuff, we'll delete it. And then if we delete it, people might get angry. I don't know. But in any event, yesterday, Scoop put up a really funny post. Or not a funny post, just a post that got a lot of I think like over 150 comments with people talking shit. And it was controversial takes that you believe in, the viewer, what you believe in that could be controversial and disagreed with pretty much the rest of the world. Something you're passionate in, right?
So this is basically fading the public with your opinion.
And this comes on the heels of the overtime rule, right?
Yeah.
The overtime rule of what happened with the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, Vinny, for bringing this up again. I know you're at the 99% tile of your recovery, but hopefully this will ease your mind, aka it'll just fire you up again. But we talked about the rules at length yesterday of different suggestions, right? So yesterday, we come up with a bunch. I mean, well, I say we, me and you came up with a couple, but the people that were commenting, and I wrote them all down. Well, not all of them. I have a bunch of them here, right? So there's some that really jumped off the page where I'm just like, either A, very interesting, or B, hilarious, right? And I'm just going to run them off, and you can kind of either jump in, Gooch, but we did pick out 3 that we're going to save for the end that we definitely want to debate heavily on this show. But we start with our boy Anand saying that the NCAA tournament, which is currently at 64 teams, should be expanded. Now, I look at this like 64 teams is a lot, but when you think about it, maybe Toast can chime in here. 64 teams out of all the colleges in the country, maybe it is less. Maybe they started a little earlier and go to 80 something or whatever. Like there's a lot of teams that are on that bubble at the end of the year where you're like, oh, they'll make it, but because of where they play or who they've played, they won't get a chance to get in.
I think what we have with the NCAA tournament is one of the best things in all of sports. And I have no idea why anyone would look at that model and be like, you know what, we should probably change this. Maybe you could make the case about where some of the games are played and how some of the seedings go and things like that with politics and who goes where. Definitely make that case.
It's actually 68, I think.
It is. I know because of the playing games.
Sorry.
I was actually going to correct that anyway, but yeah, there's no reason why they need to change. Like one of the best days in sports that week, those 2 days, I believe it's a 2-day thing where they just play in the middle of the week and there's just games.
And you're waiting for that 16 seed to take out the one.
I will say this, that the one thing I don't like is on that day is like it's just impossible to find a specific game to watch because they're just bouncing around all over the place and you end up missing a lot, but it still is great. It's one of the best bar days to go out and watch sports of the whole year.
Absolutely. Or go to your local sports book at this point because now they're popping up everywhere in New Jersey, New York, which by the way, I heard that New Jersey, the Meadowlands racetrack now is like a ghost town because now that New York is allowed, nobody's coming over the bridge, which is great. To me, I think that makes it so much better because it won't be overcrowded and crazy.
Well, it might make it so
traffic on the bridge,
right? It might make it so bad that eventually they just close.
Or that too. But anyway, yeah. So Thursday, Kyle coming in Thursday to Sunday, then Thursday to Sunday. Yeah. So that's basically 4 days worth of just nonstop action. And then you get a couple days to breathe and then bang, we're right back to it. So I don't know about expansion. I don't agree with expansion, but it is what it is. There's 2 there that I want to save.
You can make the case that maybe you need to expand on the 4-team playoff in college football. And I don't think that that's an unpopular opinion. I think largely most of the public will agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but
for football, I feel like it's been controversial for every year it's been around as 4, like, oh, but that 5th team should have got in, or oh, that 6th team. Make it simple. Make it the top 10 teams in the country. Get into this college football playoff. The first 2 get a bye, the other 2 or whatever, work it out where it's like, a couple of teams get a bye and then a couple teams go in battle, but make it 10, make it one even number. Cause 4 is tough. 4 is actually really tough because if you're a Cincinnati of old, not so much this year, but like weren't they a bubble team last year where they just missed it, or one of the teams just like people were just like up in arms, like Ohio State not getting in this year, but could have put a better game up to Michigan.
Typically, it's like the first and second ranked team end up playing each other in the title game
9 times out of 10
all the time anyway. So I think 4 teams is just fine. Maybe 6. You want to give a bye to 2 teams and something like that, but I don't agree with that. We need to even go more on that. But
all right,
what else you got?
A couple of them. There's one very controversial take that some people stand behind that I can't get behind because I've watched the replay 35 times in this specific play, and this is coming from Mr. Camarayas. He said that Rudy was offsides. I don't buy it for a second. Rudy was not offsides. He got a good jump on that ball. He took out that quarterback.
Just another corny, dumb, overrated sports movie, Dave.
You are out of your skull.
I'm sorry, I just can't get behind some of these movies. They're like too corny for me. It's not
It is a story of a guy that's trying to get into Notre Dame, and when he does, he's a walk-on. He's like he's trying his very hardest to get onto the team and maybe get onto the playing roster, and then the team drops all their jerseys for him just to play in their spot. Are you kidding? You just don't have a heart.
No, I have a heart.
No,
I'm a nice person. Ask anybody in my life if I'm a nice person or not. Rudy sucked. The movie sucked. Like,
dude,
he would have never have gotten in the game, and he probably was offsides because if he wasn't, he would have gotten flattened by somebody. Okay,
you're crazy, bro. You're crazy.
Terrible movie.
Rudy, look at this. Oh my God. First of all, Kyle coming in saying Rudy was on HGH, and then he said he hated Rudy. Rudy is garbage, according to cousin Vinny. My God. I hate Rudy. I love his hate for sports movies, and that's AJ Bascone. And listen, I don't buy it. I can't believe it. The topic was he was offsides, but you shaming the movie Rudy. Like, you're telling me that when he's on that bench in front of his school and he reads that he finally got accepted, that you don't man cry? I lose it.
I actually was like, bro, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. The opposite of man cried.
Oh, I'm disappointed in you, bro.
Terrible movie.
I'm so disappointed in you.
And speaking of ineligible players,
there was another one.
I'm sure Rudy is ineligible anyway. Right?
Why would he be ineligible?
Why would he be eligible?
There was another one. Bobby Boucher was ineligible, and then there was another one in there.
And then I said Forrest Gump was probably
Forrest Gump was ineligible
as well.
He definitely didn't.
Those were my favorite ones.
His grades are probably not. They didn't make the course.
I mean, Alabama? You don't have to be smart to go to Alabama. What the fuck are you talking about?
Roll Tide, baby. Right? Oh my goodness gracious.
He had his own NIL.
Rudy was a Packers fan, according to Hawaii Mike. How do you feel about him now?
I don't care.
Okay.
All right. In case you guys don't realize this, but I've officially drawn the line in the sand against Packer fans. I don't like Packer fans.
Oh, shout out to your Instagram exchange last night.
Yeah, Marcus Spears.
Clown
show. Yeah, no, Packer fans suck. And so do Yankee fans, and I'm one of each.
Oh,
so
Jesus Christ. All right, calm down. There's the line I was waiting for. Kyle says, remember when Bobby Boucher showed up at halftime and the Mud Dogs on the purple, do you? The best character in that entire movie, by the way, is the coach.
Isn't Steve Buscemi in that movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the best character in the movie.
The coach, wasn't it? That was the coach. No, I'm sorry. Buscemi was the other one where he's like, Joe Montana was a quarterback, you asshole. Oh, my God. Great movie. Anyway, that was controversial, was it not? Here's one. Tommy D comes in before he got suspended from Facebook. He said that soccer is terrible.
I think we could all agree on that.
We have a soccer podcast on our network. How dare both of you? Like we have to promote.
If they were sitting right here and right here, I would say soccer is
Lauren,
terrible.
Mike,
soccer is terrible. I love the podcast, guys. Soccer sucks. Simple as that,
dude. So you never got into like the World Cup when that's prominent, like
bro. Soccer. I'm going to explain what I think of soccer, and I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking anybody that chooses to play it. It's a skill. It's a sport. It's a great sport for everybody that enjoys it. I simply don't. American men play football. And I'm not saying this, and that's why our soccer team sucks. The women win all the time, right? How come the men don't? It's because we play football in America. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, if you're a man, you play football. I'm not saying that. Soccer is
canceled.
But the point that I'm making is all of our athletes play football. So if you put Reggie Bush, if you put just pick a corner out, pick any cornerback out and just say instead of
Jair Alexander,
how about Devontae Adams? How about Cooper Kupp? How about we're going to name a bunch of wide receivers and you say, okay, rewind time. You're 0 years old, right? Now you're 2 years old. Here's a soccer ball instead of a football and just let them play that their whole life. The United States would never, ever lose. Ever.
9 times out of 10. And this is just from personal experience of having one little one running around right now. The other one will be running around. And like my nephew too. Like, first of all, my nephew's got a cannon. There was a video yesterday. He threw that ball and like his form is there's a $250 million contract waiting for that kid.
Do you want me to get real controversial and start naming the sports or exercises that I don't think are sports?
No, because then nobody will ever watch us again.
Welcome to the What Chris Hates show.
Yes. I'm down. I'm down.
New podcast dropping tomorrow.
You think you're an athlete? Well, I have news for you.
Did you see the bingo girl?
My goodness.
I think Devlin posted that. She just first of all, she was dabbing.
It did well when my mother sends it to me. My mother sent it to me and she's like, I sent this
said her
to
side was
100
hurting.
people. My side is hurting this laugh. So I'm laughing so hard.
That chick is really funny though. If you watch her other
I thought it was from Honey Boo Boo or the
that's what I thought it was at first too. Honey Boo Boo's mom. But it wasn't.
This is going off the rails.
Off the rails. Sorry. Back to sports. Here's one that's some depends who you are. Depends what side of the country you're from. NHL is better than the NBA. How about that?
In the video game, 100%. NHL is the best video game of all time.
But I don't think there's enough people watching hockey. That's the problem. It's like a lost. Like right now, I'm enjoying hockey because the Rangers keep winning, so that's great, right? So I'm watching, and then we got the Frozen Biscuits podcast, episode 2 dropping Thursday, right? So we're involved in hockey now, right? But as a whole, like there's not, if you're at an arena, let's just go to MSG, the Mecca, right? A Ranger game compared to a Knicks game, that hockey game is just loud and fierce the entire time. If the Knicks are down by 10, you can hear crickets, right? But if the Rangers are down by a goal, that place is insane the entire time, bro. The entire time.
Oh, Anthony's coming in. Intern Anthony coming in with the underrated take comment. Now, Anthony, I don't want to burst your bubble, but Dave, nobody goes to hockey games, so it doesn't matter.
What are you talking? They're sold out every night. 20,000 people watching the Rangers do work.
So all 20,000 Ranger fans go to every single game?
All 20.
That's impossible.
There's more than us. There's more than 20,000.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Let's go Kraken coming from Toast. That's the closest team to his country. His state of Alaska.
If they just instead of doing like a coin toss in the NFL, say they had overtime in hockey, they just take their best guy at fighting. And the other team takes their best guy at fighting, and they meet at the center and they fight. And the winner has to fight the second best guy. So it's like a tournament thing until there's one man. So
basically a shootout with fists.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Not hockey.
So fighting.
So not hockey.
So MMA on ice.
Exactly.
You see,
pretty sure they do that. Ladies and
gentlemen, you've heard of Disney on Ice? Well, wait.
I watched playoff hockey, and here's what I saw. Ready? I watched one period of playoff hockey, and I think it was the Flyers and the Penguins years back, right? And it was like 13-12, and there was 22 fights, and I was like, I'll never have to watch another split second of hockey again because I got all I needed right here. Right? That's it. All the action that I saw more action in that one period than I ever saw in probably all other 3 periods of hockey.
I'll tell you right now, and it came from Anthony and my brother. There is nothing like playoff hocky.
Look, I'm not.
When it is like do or die. Oh my god!
You know that there's some comedic value going to what I'm saying. I'm not trying to knock the sport of hockey, and I agree. Hockey fans are way more crazy than NBA fans, but the proof is in the pudding. The ratings. Nobody cares about hockey compared to the NBA. So I guess this is perfect for this actual post, but I don't think it rings true.
Okay.
Just proven by, I guess it does ring true because it's an unpopular opinion. I don't know that it's really that controversial.
All right. There was one actually staying on hockey for a second, and now Gooch is like, great.
No, I could talk more shit.
He said that somebody came in, again, I should write down names, but somebody came in and said the Soviet team from the Miracle on Ice was overrated. And if Canada would have sent their best players, Canada would have wiped the floor with everybody. So that's a controversial take.
I wouldn't know. Because
you know about the Miracle.
No, I know, but nobody knows any of these things because nobody cares about hockey.
Oh my God, boomer. So anyway, there's another one that really made me laugh very hard. I should have wrote down your name. It's simply Brett screwed Brett. And if you're an actual wrestling fan, you'll understand that take. And it's controversial. And staying on fictional things. These are the ones that made me I came up with one saying that, my hot take right now is that Dottie Henson dropped the ball on purpose at the end of A League of Their Own 1,000%. So that Kit wouldn't run into that train. So she was a loose cannon, bro. A loose cannon. So Dottie Henson, who's never dropped it before, according to sources. So she gets tackled at I almost said at the goal line, at home plate, goes down, and then that slow motion just dun, 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 and she drops the ball. I'm like, no way. No way.
I think that we all agree with you.
You're all with me.
I think that was clear as day that she dropped that ball on purpose.
Just doing it for her family.
Love that movie.
Yeah. You bitch! I've been traded to Racine.
Also, if it was today, she would have been called out.
Yes, that's the rules
collision at the plate.
You can't even do that
especially with these robot refs at there.
My brother is gonna die at this one. I know this for a fact. There's somebody who came in that said the kid from Angels in the Outfield never saw Angels. He thinks his whole thing is bullshit, and he never actually saw Angels. And when I tell you that, I started laughing uncontrollably because then the next thing was the kid doing the the meme doing the thing with oh my God, bro! I was absolutely on fire. My side was hurting. Another movie reference, real quick. This is from Ken Paulman. Chubbs Peterson wins the Masters if not for the Gator. You would have to assume that he was on his way, right? I mean,
who was his stiffest competition? Was
Shooter?
Shooter wasn't playing.
Was there a young Shooter in the game?
Shooter,
I don't know, bro.
Shooter was on baby. Yeah, no, I don't know. That was I don't know. All right. So back to sports for a second, as we went off on the movie tangent. Hall of Fame voting. This one coming from Brian Patrick. I did write his name. Hall of Fame voting should be voted by by fans and not the voters.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Now,
do you want to know why?
Because what we just witnessed in the NBA.
Yeah, because you have the fans don't know shit. Unfortunately, I could have made such a political joke here, but I'm not. Anytime
you dumb son of a bitch.
Anytime the public has a say in anything, it usually goes wrong. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so the fans aren't voting for any Hall of Famers. Here's one that kind of rubbed you the wrong way. I believe it was Sean Ryan.
Tim Tebow would be a Hall of Famer.
good Lord. I think Sean Ryan brought this up. Dan Marino is a better quarterback than all of the modern day quarterbacks.
What?
Dan Marino is basically the best quarterback to ever live.
I think that's it.
Or at least in that generation. But he's saying all the modern day. So take your Brady's and your Rodgers and your Russell Wilsons and whoever else is prominent right now.
It's a complete dog shit take.
Why?
I think.
Crazy.
Why? Wait, why? Are you basing this off of rings?
Dan Marino might have had the best season ever. If you want to,
but I think his argument was that I think I read this, that 5,000 yards is like a sniff at this point.
So my point being is that he might have arguably one of the greatest seasons ever. But to say that Dan Marino was the best, Dan Marino took the league by storm. He was really, really successful early in his career, fell flat in the Super Bowl. And I'm not talking shit about falling flat in any big games, guys. Trust me. But he did fall flat in the Super Bowl. And then for the largely the rest of Dan Marino's career, I don't think that he was on a contending team. Maybe he had a couple playoff wins, but his win percentage in the playoffs was below 500. So you see Peyton Manning's, you see Tom Brady's, you see Aaron Rodgers, even a guy like Russell Wilson. I could go on and on about the great quarterbacks in the game. And these guys were perennial contenders just because they were on the team. But I think Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins, when were they contenders in your life?
Yeah, but all right. So
I have an answer for you. They weren't.
Take every quarterback that you would think was better than Marino, right? And then list off. So, all right. So off the cuff, give me five quarterbacks better than Dan Marino. Go. Just 5. Slowly, but in a
Joe
good pace.
Montana, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning.
One at a time. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I want to make a point.
You can make your point without having to like shoot down what I'm about to say as I'm saying it, because then it's gonna paint the picture that like I'm completely wrong here. You don't even agree with it.
I don't agree that he's the greatest quarterback
you're
of all
playing
time,
devil's advocate here.
For modern day quarterbacks, I feel like he was a lot better than some of the guys that are playing right now.
Well, I mean, the modern day, meaning guys playing right now, yeah, Dan Marino's a top 10 quarterback of all time. How many top 10 quarterbacks of all time are playing right now? I'm just saying I don't necessarily agree. I don't remotely even close to agree that he's the best quarterback of all time.
I don't either. I don't agree that he's the best quarterback of all time.
Like Warren Moon, probably just as good at throwing the football.
Moon. Yeah, Warren Moon. You can't argue there. And this is why they're controversial topics. And I was going to say that Dan Marino had a phenomenal statistical career with his best receiver was like O.J. McDuffie.
No,
you know
it wasn't. It was Mark Duper, Mark Clayton, and he had
Clayton
a
was
great
good,
year
yes, but
that year.
I'm just saying he did it he put up his numbers with less than any of these other quarterbacks that are doing this.
To go back to the point you were making before.
I was rudely interrupted.
Yeah, well, I was rudely interrupted. You asked me to speak. I spoke, and you were like, bah! And I was like, the fuck?
Just like that? There we go.
How many Pro Bowl wideouts did Tom Brady have in his career that he didn't make?
Well, he made them, but they turned out to be pretty good.
I can name one.
He had Randy Moss for a year.
They didn't win with him, so irrelevant.
They went 16-0.
So in terms of like Tom Brady played for 41 years, so he had Randy Moss for fucking 2 of them.
All right.
But the guys like Deion Branch and those types of players, and even the Danny Amendolas, the Wes Welkers.
Another decent comment coming from Ibby. I think the era Marino played in, when defenses could actually play defense, you have to look at those numbers and how long they lasted. It shows the special talent he was. Because right now, you could do the old Derek Carr. No offense, Dina, but on Thanksgiving, all you had to do was this and just
now
interference.
I agree.
And get down to the red zone.
I kind of agree, but not really, because even you could make the case that Marino only had those records because they didn't throw prior to his era. You know, like he
reinvented the era.
He was also in an era where they kind of changed the rules a little bit to benefit the passing. Okay. And I know it's nowhere near what it is today, but just the game itself, the offensive play calling, the things like that all changed in favor of the quarterbacks. And he was the first guy that was willing. I don't know. And maybe I shouldn't say this because I'm not positive, but they were throwing the ball a lot. Were they not? Like you had 500, you have 5,000 passing yards.
Their only running back I can name from his entire era was probably like Terry Kirby.
And if you look at Dan Marino's seasons, which I have, I'm not all that impressed. I'm just simply not. Okay. Look at them. Go ahead.
Okay.
You know, there's a little bit of compiling. There's a little bit of compiling going on there. I don't remember Marino being on a dominant team ever in my life. He was once, and I was 1 year old. 1 year old.
So basically, there's a lot of Marino stats where the Dolphins stunk. So that's why they're throwing so much. Is that what you're saying?
Say Matthew Stafford's got some gaudy numbers, and he's going to like double Marino when it's all said and done. So
just because the Lions suck. Yeah, I agree. All right. So let's go over to the 3 that we chose that were enough to talk a little bit about.
It is a great point, though, Ibby. I do agree.
Yeah, no, definitely. Brandon Taylor coming in a little late, but he says soccer is the world's game. So that's a thing, and that's why it's definitely the most popular sport in the world because it's everywhere. You could probably go to some town in Germany or some city in Germany and be like, "Hey, you know Aaron Rodgers. Can't believe he lost," and they're like, "What?"
No, they might.
You think Aaron Rodgers is internationally known? What is
no, I'm just saying the NFL is more known than you think. The Super Bowl is.
I remember the Frankfurt Galaxy.
Super Bowl is big.
USFL. But
and Kyle is correct. The world is also starving. So
I'm hungry too right now. All right, so let's go to the 3. Which one's first, Dina?
Steroids.
All right. So here's the big one. This is the one I wanted to talk about for a long time. Steroids saved the game of baseball. This came from Salerno, which is one of the hosts of the soccer podcast. Have you? He's a very avid fan of all the other sports too. Steroids saved baseball. It's not that broad of a thing, right? I think that baseball was on a decline until that summer of '98 when McGuire and Sosa went head to head for all those home runs.
I'm gonna fix your timeline a little bit because it's not 98. It was the strike that fucked up baseball.
94.
Right. So like when there was a lockout and there was no baseball for a while, the fans kind of left the game and they did what everybody always does and they just go find something else to be interested in. And when baseball came back, there was a combination of a few things. Obviously, it was the home run boom with McGuire and Sosa, right? The 98 thing was more of like Barry Bonds starting to happen, and that was more like a jealousy thing, like saying, like, I'm better than these guys. What are they doing? I'm about to do that too. And that's where you saw usher in with the Barry Bonds era. But basically, you're right. Steroids save baseball. I'm in such lockstep with this comment. I even had my fantasy baseball, either league or team, named this for several years. My team name or league name was Steroids Save Baseball. If there's anyone that was in that league, they will co-sign that. And also the Yankees getting good at that time also saved baseball because they had now the evil empire back. Public enemy number 1. You either loved them or you hated them. And that's like the Mayweather effect, the Conor McGregor effect, the Brock Lesnar effect, where it's like, you know, if you could just split it down the middle on love or hate, you're going to get a lot of eyes on that product. But yes, steroids and the home runs. I remember Bud Selig had the home run derby in Miller Park, which is his ballpark that he basically built. And they were hitting home runs 580 feet off the top of the slide. And he's sitting there clapping. And they're looking at these dudes yoked to the gills. And nobody knew that they were on steroids.
That's why
baseball had a full understanding as to what was happening with steroids in that era. And they let it go. And that all came to light anyway.
Yeah, well, I tell you right now, bring back Kyle came in. Bring back steroids. I want the best athletes science can create. Look, here's the thing. It's a phrase, but chicks dig the long ball. You know what I'm saying? Like that is a thing. People like to see home runs. There was times where, you know, the 1-0 game, people are like, baseball's boring. Well, if it's right, so then give me the 9-8 game.
If you're allowing baseball players to take steroids, and you got to let Aaron Cole use his spider tag for sure.
The playing
and
field.
I don't necessarily disagree with this. Look. You shouldn't be allowed to take steroids in baseball for obvious reasons.
You can take steroids in every walk of life. You are prescribed testosterone if you're an older man and you feel like your energy is low.
Typically what happened. Well, you're not.
It's the truth.
You're not out there. You're not out there performing for money.
I'm on the radio. I'm
against other guys
YouTube.
Against other guys that are performing for money, and then there's other guys that are in the minors that might want your job. There's a lot of reasons why I don't agree that steroids should be prevalent or allowed in baseball. But I do get the concept in thinking that because it happened and because the Major League Baseball clearly knew about what was happening, that these guys that aren't getting in the Hall of Fame because of steroids, I think we could all agree that that's kind of horseshit.
That's another thing. And Ibby's coming in again. Bud Selig turned a blind eye to steroids because it saved the game, then opted to, what does it say? Ostracize? Sorry. I couldn't read that far. The Hall of Famers in the era, it's trash. They saved it and deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Is today the actual vote? I believe it is. I believe that today is the vote that finds out who's the 2022 class. Because I saw a scoop come in saying that Big Papi is about to get voted into the Hall of Fame, and that man is a known steroid user. So my thing goes back to what we said before when it comes to the writers and saying like, oh, the fans should vote him in. I don't believe that the fans should vote him in. I just think there needs to be an overhaul of new writers, modern day writers. Like, look, I feel terrible, and I'm not saying terrible. They're all millionaires. They're all guys you'll talk about for the rest of your life and tell your kids about. But guys like Bonds, Clemens, like they're Sosa, maybe not so much Sosa, I don't know. But they're losing their eligibility after this year. It's over.
If your numbers dictate that you should be a Hall of Famer based on what the other Hall of Famers are then you should be in now. How many pitchers in Major League Baseball gave up home runs when they were on steroids? Like if you're a middle reliever, I think that you're on steroids. If I'm a guy that is looking to make a roster, but I'm maybe a fringe player, I'm definitely taking steroids to ensure the fact that I make it, because what's the risk? If I get caught, oh, well, I'm out of the league. I was never going to be in the league anyway.
Melky, they're all been suspended like multiple times. They're like, fuck this. I'm making money. Melky got paid. Because he went on steroids, bro. That like these guys they know the game. They know that the world's catching up to them. They know that their age is also never going to decrease, right? So you got to take the next step. And the next step was performance enhancing drugs.
This is probably the most controversial statement that's been made.
Which one?
And that nobody will agree with. That Kyle said, I'm not even convinced Bonds ever even took steroids.
Okay, so here's the thing with Bonds, and it's not a confirmed thing. There's never been any report. He didn't show up on Balco. He didn't show up on any of the what?
Yeah, he never tested positive.
Well, he never tested positive ever, right? But of course, if you've seen Barry Bonds in the beginning of his career, and then you saw him do his cameo in the movie Rookie of the Year,
pretty sure
he's as skinny as anybody I've ever seen, and then all of a sudden he just blew up.
Yeah,
Barry Bonds. I'm talking his head got this big.
Barry Bonds took steroids. Who cares?
I don't care. I'm just saying that
Sammy Sosa hit 60 home runs or more 3 straight seasons. Did you hear what I just said?
What was that?
60 or more home runs for 3 straight years.
All right, so maybe he does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But I'm saying he's losing his today's the day. 2012, they were entered. 2022, they're kicked off. That's garbage, man. That's absolute garbage. Because these players were players before this. And they got to the league in that level that Barry Bonds was a good goddamn baseball player before any steroid stuff. And I'm not even a Pittsburgh fan or a Giants fan.
I used to love the Pirates back in the day.
They had a nice little crew. And you know what? Speaking of Giants, the guy like, excuse me, Jeff Kent, not in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because he was a prick to the writers.
Well,
bullshit.
Are his numbers Hall of Fame numbers?
Yes. Look him up. Look him up.
It's also important to note, too, you can take steroids and make absolutely no progress with your body whatsoever.
Correct. I know a kid in high school took steroids and didn't lift weights. And he thought it was going to be a miracle.
You still got to do the work.
If you're a major league athlete and you're taking steroids, I would imagine that it's in conjunction with the work. I can't imagine these guys being like, you know what, let me just do this and swing the bat. What it does for these guys in a lot of cases is forget about getting bigger or stronger. It's just injury prevention and wear and tear that just you don't feel. So if you're a middle reliever and you go out there and you throw, 40, 30 pitches, the next day you're good to go. You don't have a sore arm at all. And that's what it's doing. The recovery time is so much faster. So
I would tell my brother right now, like recovering from ACL, go get something right now because you'll get better faster, right? I would recommend it.
And look, I understand that the hand-eye coordination to hit a baseball doesn't come with steroids, but you know what does? Bat speed. And that's the only, coupled with hand-eye coordination, but your bat speed and the barrel going through the zone fast is the only thing that's going to change, and like natural power, like how much weight is behind it. So yeah, steroids definitely matter when it comes to hitting. That argument is definitely not right.
Hawaii might coming in. Jeff
Vinny,
Kent,
I know that you've
5.
been on Team Gooch all morning, but I'm going to disagree with you.
Top 5 in every relevant category. Scott Simmons coming in on Facebook. Appreciate you not watching on YouTube, Scott. You're doing us a disservice here, pal. But anyway, in the future, if steroid users end up being allowed in, can they revisit older players and reinstate eligibility for them? That's a good question. So after this year, like I said, Bonds is out. Everybody's out. If they eventually vote somebody in, like let's just say this, ready? Alex Rodriguez, Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, okay? But because of all the bullshit, right, he's not going to get in, right? But let's just say in 5 years, they're like, you know what? Look, he's too good of a player not to let in. A-Rod gets in. Do you give a call up to Roger and say, hey, Clemens, listen, bro, sorry.
Do you want to know why? Because it's not like there's some rule right now that's in place that's saying if you took steroids, you can't get in.
It's just a voting
thing. It's a voting thing.
Yeah,
and it's not going to be, they're never going to be like, oh, there's a rule. We can't vote these guys in. So now we're going to change an existing rule when we never even changed one to begin with. I just don't see that happening. And it is what it is. There's guys, guess what? Life isn't fair. Pete Rose isn't in.
Pete Rose should absolutely be in as well. But that was a good one, a controversial topic that we definitely wanted to debate. And we can keep going on and on and on and on about that because it's that good and that controversial.
So Roger Clemens had steroids and spider tack.
But almost killed a man with a bat. Mike Piazza. Now that was another one I was in the controversial takes. Somebody said that Roger Clemens threw that bat at Piazza on purpose. I think I'm with that.
I don't think that's controversial. He's a steroid abuser.
He was angry.
Threw the bat at him because he was mad.
Like
also, you know what I found interesting? I saw an old
because he was mad.
I saw an old
video.
Rage, I saw an old video of Clemens on the Red Sox facing the Yankees, and he hit Matt Noakes, and Matt Noakes caught the ball like with his elbow in his back, and he fucking threw it back at Clemens. So that's happened before. The reverse. Shout out to Matt Noakes.
I love Matt Noakes. Great. Sam Grasso coming in roid rage. Yeah, it was. But in any event, that was a good one. It's heavily debated, heavily talked about. What's next, Dina?
Basketball.
Yes. This was from Gooch himself. This is, if you're a basketball and a hardwood fan, you're gonna really enjoy this one. Gooch claims that the NBA right now is a harder game to play than it was in the 90s. I, for one, am a big 90s advocate. I think you're so far off on this one because of the fact of what these players have turned into. Steph Curry can stop at the mid-court stripe and chuck one up and be untouched and never do anything and be an accurate three-point shooter, and all of a sudden he's really good, right? Back in the day, you would get an elbow to the eye socket if you kept doing the same thing over and over again. If Curry was the kind of guy that went out there and said, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to talk. Hard fouls are coming.
I'm dismissing this entire notion that if players today got elbowed, that they would curl up and cry. No, there would be a fight on the court, just like there was then. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but
the game would be the same in terms of that, right? If you want to say it's more physical. Oh, so they were allowed to foul.
So let me ask you something.
Like the skill is so much more.
I might be misinterpreting your harder. More difficult to play, or people are harder?
It's just a harder league to make. It's harder to
because I'll say the athletes have definitely.
It's harder to stay in the rotation. You could say that there's less defense until the playoffs, which I think that's coached now. It's just the league has progressed in terms of load management and letting these guys not get hurt. Look, we could argue that like the toughness of the league clearly, but Michael Jordan, there's a picture of Michael Jordan, and I know that this is cherry picking a picture of him against probably what was a bad team, but there's a picture of Michael Jordan where he's driving in the lane and there's 4 white guys covering him, and 2 of them have white hair.
So you're saying they're past their prime, is what you're saying? White hair.
I'm like, was this like a pickup game against like the 30 and older rec team or 50 and older rec team?
All right, so. Will you agree then with this narrative that you just spun that's harder now to play? You're saying on a talent level it's harder, but a tougher game, the 90s.
Tougher game meaning what? Like
that guys
allowed you to it was a less strict game.
Gritty.
They allowed you to get away with more, right? But we can make the same case like about football. We can make the same. That's sports in general. As you go forward, there's progression and things are taken away to keep it more scoring and more fun for the fans to watch. I'm sorry. I just don't think that if you put up a star on every team, you cherry pick guys out of the league right now and you put them in the league, then they're going to dominate. I'm just going to call it like I see it. I think a lot of it has to do with the players of the 90s that ushered in a very new era. When the 1992 Olympics came around and the dream team went to Barcelona and they hit Europe, do you know how many basketball fans jumped on board? At that point, you saw the Dirk Nowitzkis of the world being created because they're now
literally
like
in
a
the
worldwide
bedroom.
tour.
There next.
But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like at that point, basketball became, almost like a worldwide sport, more so than it already was. And now you're seeing the effect of that with all the European influx. There wasn't these guys playing basketball then. They were picking guys from a much smaller player pool. Now the talent is coming from everywhere in the world. Same case with baseball, where
international play.
Back then, absolutely. Like there was no black players, there was not many Dominican players. Like it took a while for the international players to come into the league. So of course the competition is much harder. There's only 13 NBA roster spots on a team. To make the NBA, you know how hard it is? You have to be really good. These guys are really, really good. The skill set is through the roof. The fact that they're able to hit threes from half court is evident in itself. Steph Curry, I'm not going to go into the paint and get fouled. I'm literally going to stop at half court and I'm going to hit a three. You're going to have to bring somebody out of the paint to stop it. And then I'll go to the paint.
Kyle coming in. LeBron James in the 90s. That would be so unfair.
It would have been it would have Michael who if LeBron played in the 90s.
You think so?
I'm going to get flamed for that one.
Wait, no,
I don't even know if I agree with that.
I was just gonna say you might have just
wait a minute.
I know we're in the moment,
but the point that I'm making is
off.
LeBron James, his body type and his physical play. People say he's soft. No, Michael Jordan cried for every single call. Michael Jordan was so hated by fans of other teams because of the amount that he cried and went to the free throw line. Dwayne Wade went to the free throw line 41 times in a game against the Mavericks or something crazy, right? So LeBron James would have just bully balled his way to the paint. It would have been unfair. It's Magic Johnson mixed with Shaq.
Oh, play basketball. Well,
whining and flopping not acceptable. Says who?
AJ Bascone. Always been a
who?
Dude, that could have been catastrophic across the interwebs.
I know.
We have a decent amount of people watching now.
Check myself.
Yeah, before you rickety wrecked yourself.
And super teams were also started by the 90s Bulls. 100%. So
I mean,
all this LeBron did this with it. No, when Dennis Rodman went to the Bulls, when Dennis Rodman went to the Bulls, that was the first super team. Period. Point blank. Period. The end.
But again, Scottie Pippen being on that team, right? By the way, shout out to Scottie Pippen and all his ventures right now. But like when you look at a team like the Bulls, it was only the acquisition of Rodman, if you think about it.
Okay, so then when the Warriors were as good as they were and dominating every year as the Bulls were, and Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, what's the difference?
There is no difference. I hate when he's right. I fucking hate it. Damn it. All right, give me the next topic. I'm done with this NBA shit.
Silent.
Knicks stink too, by the way. I got text from Jimmy Palumbo last night. Oh, terrible shot. And I was like, oh, fuck. I got those texts real late, so I couldn't even respond. But anyway, one more. This one's coming from the sauce. The robot referee in every sport. So taking away umpires, referees, your referees in NBA, the referees on the ice, everything. Take them all away and do it from the eagle eye, basically, up top. You kind of agree with this. I think that there should always be human error and element to the calls, judgment calls, because if you start doing this, this is going to open up a whole can of worms for a lot of sports. Like, yes, would it? No, it's actually would it fix a couple things here and there? I think it's going to close a lot of cans of worms that have been open for quite a while in a lot of sports, like the fact that you just said, human error. Case in point. I just don't think that you could really implement it because of the fact that there is judgment calls. Like, would Tyreek Hill have gotten called by the robot for taunting? Probably not. You know, like if a guy's like pointing out, to his lead blocker who to block, and he's pointing at a player, would they think that he's taunting him because he's pointing at it? So there is obvious, pitfalls to this whole idea. But the idea that they could do it in certain sports, whether it's like stepping out of bounds in the NBA, was his foot on the line for a three, the strike zone in Major League Baseball, out at first base, things like that, I'm all for, where you can do it. But you're never going to be able to remove the human element from certain sports because of the issues that I pointed out. Now, if they were ever able to do it, which I'm sure technology, they could probably figure it out. I'm probably not giving enough credit. Elon Musk is alive. So if he wanted to just create a bunch of refs, I'm sure that
he's on the moon.
Is he on the moon or something? Right. Kyle made a good point before, and then this is the follow-up. He said the fact that the referees have better, the fact that we have a better vantage point watching at home than the referees do on the court makes it very unfair. I think that what he's saying is true there, and very, very evident by the fact that coordinators in football, most of the guys like to be up top because they have a better view of the field. Now, I think that there should always be a team. I don't think that the challenges should be, how they do the instant review in football now? What? Where like some plays they just automatically overturn. That's the new thing. Yes. That's the new thing. That should be more of the new thing in all sports. Like if you could go to the booth. So basically, I could perfect example. An out safe call at second base. They're like, right, punch him out. But then after like an 8 second delay, they're like, well, no, he was actually safe. Yeah. Just don't instead of a review. Don't stop the whole game and put us through this whole production. Just say, look, it was pretty clear. He's safe. I mean, look, there's been times as a Cowboys fan, there's a million times where I've seen still shots of, like, for instance, this year, like, where was the hold on Micah Parsons on this play? And Micah Parsons is like strangled, right? But the referee on the field, he didn't see it, but we all saw it at home, right? That I get that part of it. And I think that we have enough technology nowadays in all sports to fix it on the blink of an eye.
I think football is the most difficult one to fix because there's so many elements to a play and there's so many different aspects of football with special teams and this and that. And it's like, how do you even do that?
Kyle is making some seriously good points. Like when you're watching ESPN on a Monday night on a certain game, right? It could be any game. If you go to ESPN2, there's 15 camera angles that you can choose from.
The point, I think,
like, why aren't the referees?
It is a good point. And what he's saying, I think, is more realistic, though. And then we have all these 4K, whatever, ultra high def views of every angle of everything. We should be using those more. But the problem is that you're going to have a human being watch those angles. I don't think, to be able to dictate what's what.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, of course. But hopefully if they're watching it in slow motion in 4K, they can get it right. How many times that this season in particular, I even said, I think it was this past weekend, there was a call where I'm like, oh, the interception, the Titans and Bengals one where you trapped it on the ground. I literally tweeted out, I'm like, wow, they used instant replay and still couldn't get it right.
Yeah.
Because it was a wrong call.
I think in NFL, what they should do, and I'm not sure who said this first, but I heard my brother saying it, and I think that he piggybacked off of somebody else. This was a couple weeks back. That they should just put like a GPS system on every NFL field and then bug the balls with a GPS tracker, and you'll know exactly where the first down is and things like that. So,
well, Danny made a good point. How are the balls going to get back to the line of scrimmage so Dak Prescott can snap it, right? You have to have a ref. You have to have a 75-year-old ref try to get to the line of scrimmage. I am still trapped about that, by the way, but I'll digress with that one. But yeah, dude, I think that the human element has to be there, and I totally get that part. But
I think the most important thing is to get it right. I'm
on the fly.
I don't really care about the human. I don't really care about the human element because all the human element does is get things wrong typically. But I'm not for it. But if it happened, I would be like, okay.
Yeah, Kyle, listen, there's still officials on the field. Like, there's not going to be any, just total anarchy where there's going to be nobody to separate a fight. If there's no referee on the ice, they will kill you. It'll be end of vitals. It's over.
What you would start to see is like you see in video games where there's things called a glitch, right? And players would Bill Belichick would have like a list of referee glitches, and he'd have all his players know them inside out. And you'd be
in the year 2040, when Bill Belichick is still coaching the Patriots, he's going to come back in his post-game press conference and say like, well, what happened on that third down? Like, well, the computer software just died out, and that's why we couldn't get the job done. And then, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's going to happen. We're going to start blaming the computers in 20 years from now, where we're like, man, they should, what's going to be funny? We're going to be blaming the computers, right? And then there's going to be some kids like our age, 25, 30 years old, when they're coming up in the world of media, right? They're going to say, you know what? They should get referees on the field to make these calls, because if they're right there, they can make the right call. I mean, we're relying on all these eagle-eye technology. That's what's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, history repeats itself. That's the kind of shit that's going to happen. We're all calling for something to be corrected now, and that shit's going to be reversed in 20 years from now, when I'm 65 years,
first of all, it probably won't be implemented until the time that you're saying it's going to get reversed, because it's not like this is imminent. There's going to be in baseball, but across all sports, it's just not. I don't see that. I don't see all, what kind of investment it's going to take. And I know the money, they all have money, but a lot of money to put the system into place. I would imagine saying a tough crowd,
bro. I know you don't have any social medias whatsoever, and you are the smartest man in the world for that reason. But if you were to join the Facebook group, this is nothing compared to what goes down in there, bro. So don't worry about it. The jokes are funny to me. I'm laughing. But in any event, that's the show today, man. We had a lot of fun with this one, because I think and thank you to Scoop, because he's the one that kind of triggered this to be a post and have everybody start talking about stuff. And it will be a continued conversation forever, because there will always be something that you feel so strongly about that just, that people are just like, this guy's out of his mind, out of his mind. Like when they, there's plenty of it. I put Dez caught it. I put Romo was better than Eli. I put, some people think like he's out of his mind, or I'm passionate about, or I think that Tony Romo was a better quarterback. Missed me with the Super Bowls, right? I get it. Okay, we're a Super Bowl champion. Great. Your defense won you those titles, by the way. All right, it's time to towel off. It's time to get out of here. It's time to do some business. But we want to thank you guys for joining us today on the Chop Sports Daily. Thank you for joining us every day at 11 o'clock. Tell your friends about us. If you have people that are complaining about the Marcus Spears of the world, like a Gooch who had a almost went fisticuffs.
I had a small exchange with Marcus Spears.
NFL former defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys and Chris Gucci went at each other's throats yesterday. And you know what his response was? And it's getting to the point where I'm just so tired of this shit. And I heard a lot of it on Boomer and Gio on the way in. like Spears referred to his wallet. Like, oh, I'm getting paid, dog. So whatever, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything?
And
so you're bragging about your money and not about the actual shit take that you just put out there. And then on the way down here, I got Gio sitting there like, well, why is that guy even calling? He's at the hospital. Why is he calling? We're really doing this today? Yeah, dude, they stood on hold for an hour to talk to you. Not for airtime, but they wanted to talk to Boomer Esiason, not Gio.
No, and Ash, I wasn't necessarily trolling. I meant it, but I'm just very subtle with my approach. Where he was like, "Oh, watch something else." I said, "Well, I apologize if my comment."
Where do you find this? Go on to ESPN Football on Instagram.
ESPN NFL. It's their take of him saying that the Rodgers is holding the Packers hostage, and that they need to move on from him right now. And it's like, yeah, you need to let go of the 2-time MVP.
I'm sorry, but
come on, bro.
I'm sorry, but your comment. Not the first one, not the obvious, like, oh, another daily trash take by Marcus Spears, which is very true. He says a lot of stupid shit, but the best part is like, don't watch. And he's like, you're like, I'm sorry that my comment actually led you to believe that I watch your show, because I definitely don't. And I was dying. I was like, holy shit, that's a clippable moment.
And then he was like, yeah, my direct deposit hit every day, boss.
Yeah, boss.
I wanted to be like, well, if I was your boss, you wouldn't have a job.
That's disgusting.
Well, he saw a bunch of he chimed in. He's like, there was one guy who said something about ESPN, and he's like, well, why don't you go start your own network and you can hire and fire whoever you want? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm here to tell you that Chop Sports Network is here for you, and not to listen to these talking heads get paid millions of dollars to talk all the shit in the world and not actually have any credibility whatsoever with their specific takes. So for Starch and Gooch, we want to thank you guys for joining us today, joining us every day. Tell your friends about us. Share this YouTube video. Like the YouTube video, please, for the love of God. Ashley was here yesterday, and I tried to explain to her that she needed to go in on all of these dudes and that weren't like the video. Just like the video. Even when it's done, hit like, right? And then subscribe, because we're trying to get to our next goal. I guess a small term goal would be to get to 700. We got the 600 over the weekend. Let's get to 700 this weekend. Why not? Let's do it. So for Sturch and Gooch, and of course, producer Dina, this has been another episode of the Chop Sports Daily, coming to you live from the Flipping Made Easy studio. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
And Jake Paul fights are not rigged.
You're gonna bring this one up?
Oh, we're gonna do this?
Yeah,
that's a fact.
Wait, hold on. Twist.